All right, so not sure if a lot of you guys have heard, but Trey Hendrickson actually a couple days ago requested a trade from the Bengals. He is 30 years old looking for a new contract. And the question here that many Bears fans have been asking is should the Bears go ahead and trade for defensive end Trey Hendrickson? So obviously, guys, Trey Hendrickson, if you guys have been paying attention to pretty much anybody on the Bengals defense, they don't really have, too many players, but Trey Hendrickson is far and away the best player on their defense. We know their defense was atrocious, but there was one thing that was going right for them, and that was their pass rush, and that's because of Trey Hendrickson. So going back to 2020, actually, Trey Hendrickson has had 10 plus sacks every single season, except in 2022, where he had 8. And looking at the stats to my left here, in 2020, he had 13 and a half sacks, 14 sacks in 21, 8 sacks in 22, and he had 17 and a half sacks these past 2 seasons in 24 and 23. And now he is entering, I believe, his last year of a new deal, and he has requested a trade from the Bengals. So the question here is, should the Bears go ahead and give up some draft capital to trade for Trey Hendrickson? And the short answer is yes, absolutely. I mean, Trey Hendrickson is obviously one of the better pass rushers in this league, and he actually did finish second in Defensive Player of the Year voting. Obviously, we know Patrick Surtain ended up winning it, cornerback for the Broncos. But Trey Hendrickson, man, was definitely in the conversation. And these past 2 seasons has been nothing short of elite, has been productive. And even though he's 30 years old, man, he has been putting up some numbers. And obviously, we know the Bears need someone opposite side of Montez Sweat. The question is Ryan Poles going to opt to get that other player either in free agency or in a draft, or in this situation right here, where he could trade for a guy like Trey Hendrickson? And like I said, the short answer is yes. The long answer is also for the right price. And what would be that right price? And to me, when you're talking about a guy who is in his 30s and is obviously on the wrong side of 30, and he will be 31 in December, you have to take into account how long the player will actually play. Now, in Trey Hendrickson's case, I don't think he's a player, sort of like a running back where at this age they might only have like 1 or 2 years left in the NFL. I believe Trey Hendrickson has a good 4 or 5 years left before he can start, maybe considering retirement. But Trey Hendrickson, like I said, has been super productive these past 2 seasons. Honestly, he's just been productive every year pretty much since 2020. So, what would be the right cost for a guy like Trey Hendrickson? So, obviously, you're not going to give up anything like a first-round pick. That is completely out the window. I would not give up a first-round pick for Trey Hendrickson. He is not really the player. The production level is really just the fact that he is older, and we don't want to trade, huge draft capital for someone who's not going to be here very long. Had Trey Hendrickson been putting up his numbers and he was like 25 or 26 and he was requesting a trade, obviously, like a guy like Myles Garrett or Micah Parsons, who are a bit younger, you would give up multiple draft pick, multiple first-round picks for. For me, I'm not going anything higher than our 3rd-round pick, which is pick 72. And I know you're probably thinking, well, why would the Bengals go ahead and accept that if he's doing so well? Well, like I said, they can't afford to pay him because they already franchise tagged T. Higgins, by the way, for the 2nd time. And also, he's requesting a trade. So, obviously the player doesn't really want to be here. He's feeling a bit disrespected that he's not getting paid. So you go ahead and ship him off. And I don't want to give up any of our 2nd-round picks, obviously not our 1st-round pick, but more specifically our 2nd-round picks, because our 1st and 2nd-round picks are going to be the starting building blocks of our future, with Caleb Williams obviously building up around him, whether you want to draft an edge, a running back, or offensive lineman, defensive lineman, whatever you want to go there. I believe those 1st and 2nd-round picks that we have this year and even next year are going to be way too valuable for a guy you're probably only going to get a couple years of elite play. Obviously, if we trade for him, I wouldn't expect him to put up 17 and a half sacks, but I also don't think he's going to be putting up 17 and a half sacks 5 years from now, 4 years from now. So, when it comes to Trey Hendrickson, you have to take into account the age. Obviously, you have to take into account the money. You're probably going to have to pay him somewhere north of $30 million per season, probably like a 3-year deal. $90 million is probably where I'm looking at for Trey Hendrickson. And yes, that is a lot of money, but I think it would be a good deal for him. I think it would be a good deal for the Bears, who need another edge rusher alongside Montez Sweat. And then you can go ahead and use your 1st or 2nd-round picks to address defensive tackle. And honestly, a little bit of a hot take here. Trading for Trey Hendrickson doesn't even take away the ability for you to go ahead and draft an edge in the first or second round. Obviously, we know Trey Hendrickson is a bit older, so you can go ahead and draft a rookie edge to sort of sit behind him, learn behind a really solid pass rusher, and obviously learn behind Myles Garrett as well. And when the time is right and the time comes, that rookie, or whether he's 2 or 3 years down the road, goes ahead and is hopefully in his place, starting really well and doing really well. So that's where I'm at with Trey Hendrickson. Nothing more than a third round pick. Maybe, and you can maybe talk me into next year's second round pick, but even then, I wouldn't want to do that. I think pick 72, pick 72 for the Bears, our third round pick, will be good enough. I've also seen some mock trades going back to the Bengals wanting to trade up from pick 18 they have to our pick at pick 10, in which they give up Trey Hendrickson. I wouldn't really want to do that, but I wouldn't be too opposed to it either. It'd be better than giving up a second round pick, so I wouldn't mind that as well. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think the Bears should trade for Trey Hendrickson? And if not, well, why not? I think we should, but let me know what you guys think. Bear down, I'm out.